Right, so we're going to start off on this wonderful little demo. The bunch of stuff that I'm handing out comes off with a demonstration, which is that wonderful bit, and a starter version of what comes out as a result. The purpose of this thing is to take a bunch of APAs, parse them so that the items, jobs, can be tagged with a cost, all those things, based on the program, individual line and instruction. That one obviously is an assembler because of the instruction types. This guy, on the other hand, is COBOL because it's got an unstring and a when and the rest of it. The purpose, the intention, is to be able to tag the more costly items by putting them to the top of individual instructions so that you can actually focus on the instruction within the program. Your basic APA is going to tell you that this program is a certain percentage of a particular job, but taking that percentage of a job and turning it into a cost, because not all jobs are the same, and further drilling into which instruction in that particular program is the more costly, is what this process wants to make happen. It's something you do manually, but putting it into a machine is not so bad. Hopefully I'm going to get through this fairly quickly because it is a bunch of simple little steps. The starting point from the zip file is going to be to take your lovely APA demo and do a copy, because you like copies, into this wonderful place. I think I might get a mismatch. Yeah. Already got it there, so we'll just overwrite the one that's there. Overwrite, copy and replace everybody. Yes, I said everybody. This is an actual set of APAs from a live client and some source from a live client. I've hacked out things that would make it obvious as to what the programs are, just because we don't have an NDA to be able to share all this stuff. But it's same. It's not going to have a lot of COBOL you can read, but who cares? So, there you go, you got your starting point. Zip in, and all of the things, I put them in cute little numbers because they sort of run in that series, the A package, the B package, are in this collection. The pieces, the fragments you get, your freeze frame reports, being here, there's one, we'll open her up. They have the nuggets of knowledge that we've got to take in and move into places. The challenge, of course, is turning them into something more intelligible. And of course, because you've got to have a program. Here's a big COBOL program. Ooh, look, it's got no instructions. But I've kept the pieces that are useful for the parsing of the data to turn an instruction, physical instruction, into a program offset. So there's your example bits, the kind of stuff you would normally grab anyway, because you're just a genius. These guys, you could look at them individually if you really wanted to. There's one, how about that? WordPad's always nice. It's a bunch of SQL. That's all this stuff is. Taking some files, CSV files, because you love comma-separated value files, and putting them into a database so you can manipulate it. To make that easy, we got a spreadsheet of events. It's got a couple of macros in it that drive these things. That to edit one of your guys, this batch file would be executed, and it starts up WordPad with a parameter, which is what the Excel is going to make happen. The one that might be a bit more of a challenge, of course, is this guy, which fires up the MySQL, because what you got, which release you got where you put it, could influence what the actual code is inside this thing. That's just to be naggy. There's some Java things here as well that we'll get into to make stuff happen. But the key behind this thing is, hopefully to make it simple, is this wonderful bit of Excel, which has got some sort of phases, go through first phase, second phase to get stuff done. Boom, boom. The first and most important one is going to be your setup. When I installed MySQL, the user ID I gave it was root, and the password I gave it was password. No real surprise there. But we're going to build a brand new database to put all our stuff in for this particular project, so we should call it something. How about Wally? Wonderful, we've called it Wally. We better make a database called Wally. There's a batch thing that I wrote that starts her up. The show database bases. What we got there? No Wally. Better create one. Yay, we've got a Wally. We'll use it. Show tables. There's none there. No surprise, eh? We've done the work we've got to do to get this thing started. Now we get the setup crap. Oh look, we've got a list of things to do from top to bottom. We've got a couple of blob things to be able to get those batch files that I mentioned active. The first thing is a manual, we just sort of did it. Some preliminary table setups, declarations. Well, let's edit it just because we want to look at it. We press a little button, it fires it up, we're editing the guy in question. And hopefully none of this is going to want to change because just a bunch of create tables. Having done that, because we've got this thing active and the batch file that ran it, let's give it the big X and get rid of those two things. That was editing it. We actually need to run it, so we'll push the beauty button that executes the SQL. It executes that script, chugs away for a little while because it's got some work to do, and presents to us the results. Started off with an echo of the kind of stuff we did, the actual results and inputs and results of the declarations or whatever the SQL was, and a closing piece. Sometimes the SQL may fail for you. You'll get a flash up before that of something that's really ugly. But that's likely to be unhelpful. We've done the first thing. Guess what we get to do? We get to do the second thing. We could edit it, but we're going to see it anyway, so we'll just fire it off. This thing is going to make a whole bunch of items, programs, with some default values, so that we can collect up all the APA stuff for these guys. You'll notice that there's secret special things into a single row in our resulting table. It just makes it prettier, in my view. These guys, we've got it pretty simple. We've got to define the systems we have, and we're going to give them a particular association, as in CPU A is going to be running in box A, CPU C box A. That kind of LPAR collected into a physical KEK might be of value to you. This guy simply wants to tag what those things are. You're going to need, or you're going to want to make that happen. Another one is to turn those nameless things, the address values, the offset values that APA is going to have, to turn them into a collective consciousness. Doing that is to take the actual offset, the instruction address, and plop it into a bucket. As you can see, a bucket of private CSA, eCSA. This guy you're going to need to do for every system, not every KEK, but every system, every LPAR you've got. Or don't do it, and it'll not, the process here will not turn those addresses into those cute descriptor things. Yeah, whatever. Now that we've done pretty much all our setup, let's do a quickie check of some stuff to see what we maybe forgot to do. Lord, look at that. We didn't put any memory locations in for those 3 systems because we were lazy and we only did it for 1. You probably go back and edit them and change them and make them wonderful, or actually get systems that are yours, because sys A and sys E probably don't mean a whole lot, and make them perfect. That's your setup, basic setup. Now for the really important thing, getting those values that you're going to be using to score items into this system. The hit list, what you get out with SMF, type 30s, trim it down with the requirements you've got. Only certain jobs. Some jobs might be excluded. What time of day you're going to deal with. Turning CPU time into MIPS, or churning out elapsed time. Whatever your score is. That's depending on what your purpose is in life. This particular guy doesn't do a whole lot more than take a CSV file that I've got called scorecard.csv, because it sounded really smart, as raw data, and put it into a temporary table so that I could pour it into the live table. The live table's got some expectations, not a whole lot. One of the things that this scorecard doesn't have in it is the clone, because we're going to group those same things together. Maybe there's 20 jobs in a stream that are really all the same. What we're going to want to do is to combine all of those 20 jobs into a single item so that we can get the score value for that process. So we've got to populate our little guy, read that score value thing in, and pour it into our table, all 4,758 rows of it. Whew! Now I'm going to let you play with this maybe if you care about it, but I just ignore it. Oh, look at it. It's oh my God, I've put in some APA data and found out I didn't have any information in my clone table. Why don't I go and retrofit that? Take the data, pour it backwards. Not necessarily the smartest thing to do, because, you know. Some clones. Now you got some other bits that could be clones, like online regions are a great example. You got 6 Kix AORs. They're all doing the same transaction load. Or rather than seeing them as separate items and building them separately, bring them together as one. Same for IMS MPRs. This happens to be an IMS shop that's full of those guys. Another one is that I know that this particular world has a multi-stream batch, and it's got them with these names and this name. They're very similar. So I've put in a physical, update it the hard way as opposed to through some table. Execute it. Lo and behold, it does what it's supposed to do and puts the data in the table. Yippee! La 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 la. Always nice to do a check. Oh, look at that. We don't have anything that looks broken from this perspective. Yippee! Which is really just a cross-check of the data we've poured in, some of the data we've poured in to make it good. Now this one is kind of a messy bit, in that it just assigns stuff over to a stuff. Last but not least, not everything is as fast as you'd want. With that data we've been dealing with, we were putting in a temporary table. So this one is going to copy it over to a permanent table and add a system tag, something we built earlier from an LPAR to a box, system tag into that particular item so that it's got a little more usefulness, I think. Yay, we've got a score data in. Now we've got to get our APA data. Oops. We've got to turn those reports into something that are CSV files so we could load them. This happens to be an APA world, so we're going to have to use our wonderful APA process. Ning, 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 ning. Turn in the command prompt. Oh, there we are. That'd be my user ID, hey? We call this thing APA demo. Let's try to get over to my documents. APA demo. And in there we got a bunch of class directory, not LS, you dummy. Class things. The guys in question we want to do now is the map slice APA. Map slice APA. So the Java map, notice the uppercase. Java is picky. When the JVM starts up, it's going to make sure that that particular value you coded matches the actual class name that's in there. It does take parameters, but you know, I'm kind of lazy. La 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 la. It wants a directory that it can go through and all the subdirectories within it to find APA files. We put them in that, well, we got them free of charge. We got them put in our APA demo. We got to put them in the example directory. It's a subdirectory too, but as I say, I'm lazy, so EXAMPLE. And it's going to go through not just the APAs, but it's also going to go through the source listings. It'll complain the source listings are crap, but such is life. We have 20 of these things, so it's going to be a little boring. I could sing if you wanted, but you'd probably find that frustrating. Scooby-Dooby, Dooby-Doo. We'll eventually finish, And having done that, we'll be able to move on to the next guy. It doesn't really do a whole lot apart from, look at that. Let's load this map slice results CSV file, which is what that by default Java thing is going to write. Going to put that little guy out there so we can read it in to our super duper APA data table. Again, this process starts to build a table piece by piece so that we can then move it into a realistic table. We can do some manual changes to make it better. And lo and behold, it complained about these things because they didn't have the appropriate pieces of the APA report that we need to make sense out of it. But we've done our job. We've got some files, the file. So now we can run the actual SQL to inject it. Looky. Also the expectation of a lot of this particular SQL is that the files that it's going to read in will be in the APA directory itself. The directory we're working with, that we copied it to, that we manufactured. So files have to be in there. Look, we loaded stuff. Ooh, we got no errors that we could see. If we did get something quirky, you'd fix it. I'm not so sure what quirky's going to be. What a happy guy. We don't have anything such as a system, an LPAR, inside the APA data that doesn't exist in our little table. That would be a bad thing if we did. Now some of those APA reports, when you add up the actual values, the reported percentage values, they get to be really below 100%. Yeah, okay, I suspect the data is a little dodgy, but you got to work with what you got. Some of them might be really small, so that you'd probably just better off getting rid of them. These ones we could do to get rid of. Here's a manual process of, if it's any of the guys that we got in our little criteria, then delete them. It's all commented out, so you'll have to go and fudge it yourself, or just suck it and see. The next bit is to take those lovely bits of unknown location and match them up with the memory table that we had built to turn them into names that make more sense. We sort of did and we sort of didn't do this, but hey, she'll be right. Because we didn't fill in the full data in the memory stuff, there isn't as much much correcting as it can do here. These two processes must have some horrible SQL, which I'm not really good at, because sometimes they take forever to run. Another neat feature is that now that we've not got 100 as a tally for all of the subsections, we've got to somehow deal with only showing 80% of the job. I'm not so sure how you best want to do that. My approach was to say, well, let's count up how much is there and invent something, just randomly invent something, to be the residue. My guy I called the berries. So I've invented a row in the table to be that missing 10%, 20% for each individual APA. You might find a better approach, or you might just skip that altogether. Now that we've got that lovely data, let's, because we're happy with it, we didn't need to do any manual changes, let's copy it from the temporary tables into the live tables. We'll delete any duplicates that are already there, because you might want to go back and fix them up again, and polluting the data twice over is not so happy. Now for a really sneaky thing. You're running APA. Well, it's got some processes inside it that are actually being attributed a certain cost. If you were running this as a real job, those processes wouldn't be in there. So what I've done here is simply assign those processes, those modules, a 0 value in their attribution. So we're shrinking the 100% down to 90 or 80% by removing these guys. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not so good. Yay, we got our APA in. Now it'd probably be smart if we turned it into a little bit more useful stuff. These SQLs are a simple process of blending a number of bits of data, the score stuff along with the APA stuff, into a bit more of a useful format in a table. It's just a bunch of stuff. And hopefully I've got it right, but you never know. Sometimes things can be not so good. Now for some fun. I personally tend to skip this one, but you never know, it can be fun. Some of those tables we've got are APA clone data, CSV file, can be handy. This particular sequence of events, where we produce an output of CSV file, I got to put it somewhere that has access. It's rather than make you recode all of these SQL, I've simply said, well, everybody's got a users public documents directory, and generally everybody has access to it. So I'll just plunk everything in there. This particular guy has put in APA clone data.csv into that particular directory, which, lo and behold, public documents, I have right here. Wow, look at that. We can open it up and it's got a whole lot of data, most of which is unintelligible. Well, not really, it's just very large. Putting some titles into that one might be handy by stealing the headings thing. If you wanted to take these guys, to put them into some kind of sensible fashion. I hope you're not getting too tired of my monotonous voice. So you could now start taking that, you could start pivoting the percentage attribute. Why don't we do it? Insert pivot table, because you gotta love pivots. We got our lovely percentage attribution against a module, and let's take it for a particular clone. And because it's always nice to see the big ones at the top, we can do a sort descending our percentage. Boom! Look at that! You'll notice this percentage is way above 100. That'd be because this particular sequence, this APA'd set of jobs, of which we had a number of them strobed, APA'd, are going to have a tally of more than 100. If you got 5 jobs and each one has 90% reportage, you're not going to have just 100. Unfortunately, our buried guy, because APA's got some quirks about it, our buried guy tends to be extremely high. It's the missing bit is really, really large. Doesn't make me happy personally. Another guy then, we're going to pull him out piece by piece because we've got the source for him, is that fella. I'm not so keen about this. I tend to throw them away because I don't care. We got another blendy, which is going to turn some more data into some more dids. So we're going to break it down at a more detailed level. Lo and behold, it worked. We could unload that, but I probably don't really care. This one I kind of like, because it gives me some hinty stuff. Hello, hinty stuff. Look at that. Of the things in our scorecard that we do not have APAs for, these guys are in there. And of the score total for that box, this one is 4.5%. That's kind of a large bit. So this KICS region, we did not capture an APA for, and it's 4% of that particular box. This KICS region, another. What you might do from this is to say I should follow up and do a couple more of these things, because I'm not getting the big picture of all the scored items. But you don't have to do that now. You can still move on being a happy chappy with what you've got. And the first thing at this point is to say, what were those programs I had? Darn it. Remember that spreadsheet we opened up because we downloaded? Oops, it had module names in it. Sorry, forgot to tell you. That might be a handy way for you to find out what modules would be good to pull apart now. But you'll work it out. Our lovely little guy, the Java program, Map COBOL, it's going to take a directory full of stuff and plow it out, because it's just that kind of guy. Get rid of this because you don't really care. There we had him, he was there. So we can do our Java, Map COBOL. I just hit the Tab key to let Windows fill in the answer, because I don't want to type it and have to get in all the rest of it. And lo and behold, it's going to say, I've got a file of directory of things I want, EXAMBLE, that's the directory it puts stuff in. And it's not going to find too much in the way of COBOL inside of these particular APAs, so it whinges about them. But the ones it does find, it happily parses. So we've got our job done. We can now take that stuff and we can put it into our program directory. Look, we've got these 4 guys because we parsed all 4 of them in that one run. Yay, aren't we lucky? Now, we might have found something wrong with them or didn't like them or whatever, they delete them. Or not, but you got to move them from the temporary file into the live file. And we've also reported all of the items in the live file. Remember that bunch we put in for free up front? And they're back. Oh, isn't life wonderful? Now you might also have some assembler programs. We do, so we should probably bring them to life. Map as them in the same way. It just parses through stuff and finds what it finds. Blah, 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 blah. Look, there were 2 that didn't have any errors, so I'll bet you there are 2 that are actually there. Having done that, we could go and look at it because we need to edit it. I couldn't find a simple way to make the actual program name obvious. Assembler doesn't tend to be as comfortable as the rest of them. So I put in the file name effectively with a busted. So if you don't fix this, you're going to find that you have crappy names. I happen to know the actual name of these things, just lines up nicely with the guy in question. You probably would need to look at that. So I'm going to edit all of the blah blah blahs, replace all, to be what we know is the valid one. And here's another happy guy. Copy or replace that guy with sort of the same name, but we get rid of the junky bits. Oops. Isn't life wonderful? Yay, so now they have stuff in the format we want. So we save that. Yay us. We've done that manual thing. Now we can take that file and put it into the world at large. Lo and behold, it's got 2 modules with a bunch of instructions. Yay! They're perfect, they're wonderful, although you probably should check them. So we better put them into the live table. Back again with our echoed fellows, our other COBOL guys, and our new assembler ones. Oh, we've done something useful. Now we can get to the really, really handy bit. This one is where we're going to blend together a couple of wonderful files. Or, sorry, we're going to produce a couple of wonderful files, because the slicing up of the COBOL and assembler programs we've done on one side of the fence, and the scorecard chucking up and APA blending in another. To put the 2 of those together, I couldn't see a way to do it in SQL. So we got a little bit of Java that's going to make that happen. But we need to, or we want to make a couple of files. Oh no. Why is my mouse not working? I hate it when my mouse stops working. La 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 la. Yeah, it's working again. I don't know. I've changed the battery. So we've got 2 files we put in the documents directory, APA both and map file. Those are the ones we're going to feed into our Java program. But our Java program is going to expect them to be in the place that we're running from. So we better copy from public documents, because that's where all of the output files are. We better copy them from there into our lovely example, into our lovely APA demo place. Paste, cha-chunk, cha-chunk. If we don't do that happy thing, then the program is going to whinge. Boy, is it going to whinge. And the guy in question is Java map slice. No, not that one. With the blend. We're not going to put any parameters in, so it's just going to assume that it knows what it's got. Look! It decided it found a stuff to process in that program, a bunch of rows to actually do what it do. That guy then produced a file that we're now going to load in. Isn't it amazing? Files and loading. Data. And it's given us a breakdown that these particular verbs, some of them will make sense, have a contribution in a certain number of places. Question mark's very popular because that's the we don't have nobody for nothing. Other ones, they're nice. Having got that, we should produce a file that is going to be useful as that little pivot table that we started with. La 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 la, boy it does stuff, hey? Now that we've made that file, I know you want to pivot it, so we'll use this built-in macro, wow, to actually do that work. Kalunk, 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 kalunk. And look, it's the thing we started with, the very same, telling us, well, suggesting to us that we could target this particular program because it's near the top and it contributes to a variety of items, and see what this particular guy is. Now, obviously a branch in set system mode is going to be a call, so you'll find out that that's sort of where the, sneakily, because I've seen this thing, that's where this guy does his high-level interface, his DB2 calling stuff. It's a weird application. It's got some other things inside of it, but they're smaller. The fact that these are at the top is because they're all part of this particular program. The fact that this one is the top of the program list because it's the biggest, but not all of them have to be really large. Next down on the list program is this guy, and its biggest piece is an unstring. Ooh, that'll be COBOL, and it's really, really big in these two guys. Look, those clones with the multi-string thing. Good chance that if we look at that particular program, we'll find that the unstring is there, and maybe we can do something with it. Go down a bit more because they get smaller. This guy, he's in there. Hey, he's an unstring. Ooh, it's looking popular, Mr. Unstring. La 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 la. It's the answer. This is the place to which we want to get so that we can find programs to hit and the actual instruction or verb to target, because that verb in that program has got a certain contribution overall, 3993 of this. I'm going to make it really easy and turn these into percentages. Value field setting. Percentage of the column. Percentage of the column. So that we can say, look, of the total bill for stuff, this thing is 10% of our scorecard of stuff we've looked at. My goodness, if we could knock 10% off all of our universal whole thingy-me-doo-dah, we'd be making a big win, I would think. The process that we've got is this collection of stuff that is just driven by your spreadsheet. Start at the beginning with the config. The big one, make sure you pick a database you're going to like and make the database. Hopefully you've got these two correctly assigned. Do your setup stuff, go through it left to right, top to bottom. Geez, sounds like an IMS database. Get your scorecard in. That's going to be a really important bit because you want to make sure your numbers are realistic and correct and nice and tidy. And the data in it matches up with the kind of stuff that the APAs report, as in job name, step name, proc step name, because we got to line up this particular report with this particular scored item. Get your APAs, mash them up, put them in, have a good time with them, throw out the ones that are garbage, do your breakdowns, clunk, 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 turn your COBOL programs into something useful, same with any of your assembly programs. Do the hokey pokey by putting it all together and look at the answer. That's it. So I'm going to stop now.